Jeffries, Leader of the Council, and I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded for publication on the Council website. Item number 1, apologies for absence. I don't believe there's any apologies?
No, we've had no apologies.
Okay, thank you. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the Cabinet meeting on the 15th of March 2023 to be approved as a correct record. Are there any comments on the accuracy of the minutes? No. So minutes are approved. Thank you. Item 3, I've not agreed to any urgent items of business apart from the waste report, but that comes up under item 11. Does anyone have any declarations of interest to make? No? Okay. Okay, so item 5, statement of the leader. This will be a short statement. For just exactly 3 weeks I've been in the role as Leader of the Council. I'd like to put on record my thanks to the Chief Executive, Dave Smith, and senior officers who have provided me with excellent briefings and advice, so I've really hit the ground running as Leader of this Council. As you'll see, I've appointed a new Cabinet who I believe, with the support of the right officers, will carry out the reforms that are needed to this Council so that we will get ourselves back onto financial stability and sound governance. However, we should be in no doubt that there is a long way to go, more of which we will find out when the government releases the BVI report. As I said to full Council, I believe this to be an opportunity for us to reshape and reform the Council so it will provide the services that residents so need. As I say, a short statement by me. Item 7, petitions submitted by members of the public. Not aware? No?
No, none.
Okay, thank you. So we're not aware of any petitions submitted by the public. I'm not aware of any questions submitted by non-executive members either.
No questions.
Okay. Right. So matters referred to Cabinet for consideration by overruled scrutiny. I'm not aware of any apart from, as I said, the waste report, which is coming soon, where ONS have provided us with some comments. I think I've missed some item, haven't I? Item 10. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's sorry about this. There was briefing on policy, item 6. So my apologies, I did miss off item 6, briefing on policies, budget and other issues. Is there anyone wishing to say? Councillor Maney. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to say something very quickly about our school crossing patrol officers, because I know there's been some interest in that recently. As you will know, when Cabinet were looking at potential savings, we did identify that service as being one, in the sense that it's not a statutory service. Now, I think what Cabinet have agreed to do, and it's a worthwhile undertaking, is to see whether that service can be funded by either schools themselves or by third parties in the borough. And there have been some discussions around that with third parties, and it looks like that could bear through, but it's at a very early stage. The point I wanted to make, I've seen the letter that was sent to schools, and there's been some reflection on that, and I think everybody agrees, even officers, it wasn't particularly well worded, and it has led to some confusion. I just wanted to really take the opportunity to make clear that there is no intention to remove that service. It's not something that the administration supports, and we will continue to look for alternative funding. But if it transpires that we can't find that funding, there certainly are no plans to terminate the service. So I just want to set that, and I think you're in full agreement there. There won't be a situation where we're just going to remove school crossing patrol officers from outside schools because we can't find alternative funding.
Thank you, Councillor Maney. Yes, just to echo, I agree with entirely what you said. There will be no removal of the service. Yes, we will look for alternative ways of funding, but we do not plan to remove this service from the community. Item 10, appointment to outside bodies. I have got a few appointments here. I'm just going to read them out. Apologies to everyone. I didn't quite get them through to get them printed so that everyone could see them. So Anglia Regional Food and Coastal Committee, Councillor Gary Collins. Association of Public Service Excellence, that's myself, Councillor Jeffreys. Mid and South Essex NHS Foundation Trust Council of Governors, Councillor Georgette Polly. Essex Partnership for Flood Management, Councillor Collins. Essex County Traveller Unit, Councillor Jeffreys. Impulse Leisure, I propose to remove myself and put Councillor Jimmy Tandy. Local Government Association remains the same, Councillor Johnson and Councillor Abbas. Opportunity South Essex, myself, Councillor Jeffreys. South East Local Partnership Strategic Board, again that's myself, Councillor Jeffreys. South East Local Enterprise Partnership Accountability Board, it's myself, Councillor Jeffreys. Thurrock's Art Council, Councillor Joy Redsill. Thurrock Sports Council, Councillor Jimmy Tandy. Thames Estuary Programme Board, myself, Councillor Jeffreys. And then Thurrock Community Safety Partnership, again myself, Councillor Jeffreys. ASLA, myself, Councillor Jeffreys. High House Production Park, Councillor Deb Arnold. Do I have to get agreement for that? Can I have agreement for all those positions, please? Thank you. Okay, item 11, which is the waste report, which you have before you. I should say that this report has gone to ONS. You also have in front of you their comments, which I think we can sum up with saying that they broadly welcome the introduction of what's been proposed. Apart from one change, which is in the recommendations, which is where it talks about option 5, they're asking for the word interim to be removed and it to be replaced with until a fully costed waste implementation plan has been completed. I've got no problem with that going forward, and I hope members would. Oh, sorry, yeah, there's also the scope of strategic review will be developed for members' consideration, but will include the type, level and forms of delivery of service. This should be brought to the Overall Scrutiny Committee not less than 1 month before Cabinet, again, which I've got no problem with. So what I would say on this paper is that, that there has been a service that's not been acceptable to people for quite some time with regard to brown bins. We have, however, delivered a much improved service on the recycling and the general waste bins. They're being collected on the day they should be collected. If they're not, it's been reported, it's been investigated. The team at the depot are doing a really good job to make sure that those bins are collected as and when. The problem we had was with brown bins, not having sufficient crews. I'm not going to go over all the reasons for that. We've heard them all before, and they went through with an M&S. So I think the proposal that's come forward is a reasonable proposal. It ensures that people get their brown bins collected throughout the summer months, which is when they most need them. We're collecting their recycling bins and we're collecting their general waste bins. And then we're carrying out the really important thing, a complete review of the service, because government are expecting us to include food waste, and they may ask for further changes as well. So I think we're doing the right thing. So I now open it up to other members to speak. Councillor Cockshaw.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffreys. Just as where we're looking forward for an interim, as we say, remove the word interim and go for a full strategic review. Have we got any timelines coming ahead, or have we got any idea of whether or not this is going to be a end of the year solution? We have a full review, or are we looking into next year perhaps? So perhaps give residents a bit more reassurance, just to say that this is an issue we've cracked on, and we are really working to make sure we get a full service going ahead.
Yeah, this would be at least the end of the year once we've undertaken a full review.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold. Anyone else like to comment? Councillor Snell.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, I think, given the situation that we had with no brown bin collections, we needed a resolution. And I think this is a sensible resolution, but acknowledging that there's always going to be people that are not happy with the outcome of that, because obviously there are some people who are going to fill their blue bins up more than their green bins. But, you know, ultimately we needed to find a solution, and I think this is, given with what we got to work with, the best one we could get. I think one of the other things from ONS last night was that there was a suggestion that we stop doing the brown bins in the months, or I think it was December and January. And I think it was raised in ONS by Councillor Redsall that actually you could probably include November in that as well. And I think, you know, if we can extend the period where we do a weekly collection of the blue bins through the winter period, I think that will be beneficial. Maybe we should take that on board.
Thank you, Councillor Snell. Anyone else? Right. Councillor Maney.
Thank you, Leader. You know, it is a compromise, and I welcome that. I will just place on record, as I have with you personally, that it does go against the grain a little bit to be paring back a recycling service. That doesn't sit well with me, and I take on board that ONS or CGS have asked that we remove the word interim. Well, it very much needs to be an interim solution for me, because I think a long-term solution, where a long-term arrangement whereby we're reducing by 50% the amount of recycling that we collect, I think ultimately that's going to mean that people just throw it in their green bin, which is not ideal. So for me personally, I hope as we get into the review, we look seriously about reinstating a weekly recycling collection again, and looking seriously at reducing the green bin collection. We will be looking to roll out a food waste collection, and I think residents, including myself, need to think a bit more about what we put in our green bin. I think all of us need to reduce what we send to landfill, so I hope we won't see a prolonged period where we're not collecting recycling. Just, I mean, a comment. I mean, Councillor Snell made the point about not running a garden waste service in November. I think I know that was a recommendation from ONS. I do think we need to bear in mind that that's when leaves come off the trees. I actually think we should, instead of not collecting in December and January, we should look at January and February. I think, you know, with sort of mild winters now, leaves are not falling until December. I mean, we're probably getting a bit too much into the detail, but I just think we need to bear in mind a lot of the residents rely on their garden waste service during the autumn when leaves are coming off the trees.
Thank you, Councillor Maney. Perhaps something that I didn't say, just for the public so they know, one of the, we did look at, as you're aware, we did look at doing the recycling every week and general waste once a week. So a couple of reasons why we didn't do that. The general waste bin would contain things that perhaps are a bit smelly and couldn't go for that length of time. And when we do introduce the food waste, it takes that element out of it. And the other thing is with the contracts that the council have got, and with the restraint to the service that we've got, it was a quicker solution to introduce this. If we'd have gone for, as we wanted, the recycling and the general waste, we wouldn't have been able to introduce that until the beginning of September, which would have meant people not having a brown bin collection over the summer. So that's what I do. I do take on board what you said about leaves falling. One of the reasons why I was certainly advised December was because it's Christmas and people have a lot more packaging, so the recycling. But I do take on board, so I mean, I don't know how Cabinet feel. I mean, I think December, January should be the 2 months that we suspend brown bins service, and then possibly look at it, that it is something we could look at in future as part of the review. But for the moment, we go with December and January. Anyone else? Okay, so can I get agreement that it's option 5 with the amended wording, which is until a fully costed waste implementation plan has been completed, and that we're also agreeing that the report should go to ONS 1 month before Cabinet. Is everyone in agreement? Thank you. Okay, so item 12, the award of a contract for occupational therapy and independent mobility assessment service. Members should note that the appendices for the next two items are exempt, but the reports are public. I'd remind members and officers not to discuss the contents of the appendix while we are live streaming the meeting, and would propose that we go into closed session where members of the press and the public will be asked to leave the meeting, and we will stop live streaming to discuss the contents of the appendix. At that point, we will go into closed session. So, Councillor Cockshaw, can I ask you to introduce the first report, please?
Thank you, Councillor Jeffreys. So the report in front of members this evening is about awarding the contract for the Occupational Therapy and Independent Mobility Assessment Service. So it's been out to open tender and we've received the outcomes through the process. So both of these will provide are both statutory instruments that we have to abide by. So for occupational therapy assessments and independent mobility assessments, both under the Equality Act and Care Act. Both of these papers are relatively short. What I would like to point out again, the budgetary envelope remains the same as last year, and it's a matter for another sort of renewal of contract. So we are looking at undertaking the therapy assessments. And anyway, if any member has any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you, Councillor Cockshaw. Has anyone got any questions other than the pink paper? Councillor Maney.
Thank you, Leader. I've got two, actually. If I can I ask them of Les, because I think, Councillor Cockshaw was very new to his post, and I think he probably won't have the answers to this. If he has, please interject. But just on page 37, it tells us that the existing budget will remain at £99,360 per annum. It just seems a bit of a random figure to me, and I suppose I'm just wondering how we've arrived at that figure. Have we satisfied ourselves that there's perhaps not some room for savings? Are we satisfied it won't come under pressure? We just heard it's a statutory service. So how can we assure ourselves that that figure is actually reflective of what we need to run the service? And the second question, again, the report tells us that the re-procurement exercise went through Health and Wellbeing, ONS. It seems to me that it would have been tidy to now send this back to them before it comes here. I'm not sure whether that's good practice for these kind of things to go via ONS, but as the re-procurement was approved or recommended by them, have they now seen what the proposed decision is? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maney. Mr. Billingham.
I'll start again. First question first. 99,000 and odd is the outturn figure from what we spent last year. So when we went through the procurement process, that was the figure set as the sort of upper cash limit. And it guarantees that there'll be no increase in price for the duration of this contract. So I don't know exactly why it's such a random figure, but I guess it just reflects the amount of spend that we had to date. So the good news is, despite all of the obvious pressures that people are under in terms of interest rates and cost of living rises, etc., they have confirmed that they will keep within that cash envelope. In terms of how can we guarantee that the service is good, and meets the demand, it will deliver the same high quality services that we've seen from this organisation over the past few years. I have no reason to suspect that that will drop off. Demand is an ever increasing factor in adult social care, but equally we have to work within the budget envelope that we have, so that's why we've done what we've done. If demand increases significantly, it would lead to an increase in waiting times, but this organisation has been very effective in managing the demand that we've seen over the past few years. So we're as confident as we can be that it's the right award for contract. In terms of the HOSC paper, I'm not sure. We went to Cabinet for approval to proceed with the tenders. We achieved that back in November, and now we're coming back to get authority to award contracts. So I'm not sure that would be an appropriate thing to go through overview and scrutiny. Certainly, that wasn't the advice that we were given. It was to bring it back to Cabinet.
Thank you. Any further questions? So I think we now need to go into closed session so that Councillor Arnold can ask her question. So, colleagues, we've got recommendation 1.1, and as the monitoring officer said, we'll agree this with the exception of the pink paper. And as we have a second pink paper, we'll do both of those in closed sessions once we've done the first two papers. Yeah, so could I have the agreement? Yes, Councillor Arnold.
Sorry, Leader. So we're agreeing the recommendation subject to the question into, not with it, accepting it, because they're looking confused over there because we can't agree to it until we've got explanations. That's so subject to.
So we'll move on to the second paper then. Councillor Coxall, would you like to introduce your second paper?
Thank you, Councillor Jeffreys. Very similar to the first paper, members. This is a award of contract for teleco equipment at this point. And again, under the Care Act 2014, where it's providing a statutory service. Again, same, mirroring the previous report, the budget envelope is staying the same for up to 6 years, and very similar to some of the issues raised in the previous one. I'm more than welcome to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Coxall. Any questions from any members? Councillor Carter.
Thank you for your report, Councillor Coxall. I was just wondering, it does mention digital transformation as a key area of change that is upcoming. So I was just wondering how much flexibility is built into this, if it might need to change in 3 years' time.
No, I might, straight on the bat, I may refer to Les slightly on this one, but just as a point, I would believe there would be a little bit of flexibility, but maybe perhaps Les can answer that better than I can at the moment.
Yeah, we have built into the contract the digital switchover. So the provider that we've selected is completely compatible with that switch. There is a requirement of the council to do work in terms of making ourselves ready for that digital switchover, and that's subject to a separate work stream. So the council per se will take on board the fact that we need to switch from analogue to digital at some point in the near future. But in terms of the equipment and the provision of this service, the people we've selected are very digitally adept.
Thank you. Any other? Yeah, Councillor Snell.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Just for my clarity, really, you say it's we selected the provider, but it looks like there was only one company in contention anyway. Is that the case?
Should I get that? There was two, actually. Only two came forward for this particular contract, and it was a selection between those two. It's a fairly limited market, but the two of the biggest players in that market came forward, and we selected one from two.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Yep, Councillor Maney.
Thank you, Leader. I asked the question in relation to the previous report, so I have to ask it again. How have we arrived at 107,364? I suppose I need to press the point. We're just agreeing nearly £200,000 worth. It's over £200,000 worth of contracts. How do we know that is? Where's the evidence to show that? I'm sure it is, but just saying we did it at the last contract term, so well, that's the figure again for this. How do we know we haven't sort of challenged that to see whether we can deliver that more cheaply? Have we benchmarked against other local authorities? How do we as a cabinet know that that is just the appropriate amount?
I can only repeat my last answer, really. The whole point of the tender process is to go through and judge value against other criteria such as performance and the ability to give confidence that they can deliver the service effectively. The cash limits are set by what we had, by and large. And so we work within that envelope. Had we have had something, there's normally a tolerance. So if someone comes in, say 10% over the value that we've declared, or indeed much lower, then that is something of concern. But in this case, that wasn't the case. The company in question accepted that rate. And we went through a whole series of other processes to assure ourselves that that they were capable of delivering a good service. That tends to be the way that tenders are run. It's not always, but particularly in the financial climate we're in, we do have to set limits in terms of going to tender.
Thank you. Any further questions? No. So we now go into closed session, I believe. Welcome back to members of the public. So we just need to confirm the recommendations in the two reports. So the award of a contract for occupational therapy and independent mobility assessment service. Recommendation 1.1, do I have agreement? Thank you. And then in the award of the contract to supply, install and maintain and repair telecare equipment. Where is it? Recommendation 1.1, do I have agreement? Thank you very much. There's no further business. Thank you, everyone, and that concludes the meeting this evening.